Spotlight is a production of CTNY, the Catholic Television Network of Youngstown. It seeks to spotlight people, places, and events from around the Diocese of Youngstown that promote the new gospel of joy called for by Pope Francis. Your program host is Father James Corda.
Hello and welcome to Spotlight. I'm Father Jim Corda. Joining me is Sister Janet Gardner, who is the director of Beatitude House. Sister, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much. It's good to be here.
You know, we've known about Beatitude House for many years now. We're friends of Beatitude House, and as are many people around our area. Tell us a little bit of the history of Beatitude House.
It's a beautiful history, The Ursuline sisters, as you know, really have been central in the Mahoning Valley in the Diocese of Youngstown. One of their sisters, Sister Margaret Sheets, who was a math teacher, after the recession back in the 80s, saw a movie, a made-for-TV movie called God Bless the Child. She looked at that movie, and it's about a woman who, through various circumstances, becomes really poor. She has a young child, and it goes through her experiences of being poor, without housing, without any resources at all. And Sister Margaret was so moved by that movie, she thought, Youngstown has to have women like this. So she did check it out. She wanted to start some kind of program to help single mothers with children. At the same time, the Ursulines had the fortune of having a Tudor home on Fifth Avenue on the north side of Youngstown donated to them. And so Sister Peggy decided, let's use this house. Let's start here. So she gathered people, friends, to try to renovate that house, ultimately with 5 apartments, with Sister living right there at the house. And in 1991, the first 4 women with their children moved into Beatitude House. Of course, taking that from the scriptures. Sure. Trying to create a blessing for these families and help the families get on their own. So from our humble beginnings of 4 families, we now have 63 families in 3 counties. So it's a beautiful, beautiful response to something as simple as a TV movie. But the need was great. She found that there really was nothing else being offered at the time for those women. Began that. Other sisters were involved as well. I think some sisters, Ursuline sisters from Cleveland, also have been involved with Beatitude House.
We're going to talk a little bit later on in our show primarily about the whole issue of disadvantaged women and children and this whole cycle of poverty. Yeah. But before we get into that, we want to talk a little bit more about not only Beatitude House and what they do and what you do for the people, but let's try to put, for the folks that are with us, a face on the people that you minister to. And is it okay to use that word, minister to?
Absolutely. Okay. It is a ministry. And what I'm really pleased that our 30 staff members also see it as a ministry, not simply as a job. It is a way in which we can live our Christian life, reach out to others, which I'm thrilled with Pope Francis, of course, and his emphasis on living out our faith. We have three goals. We want to create a safe environment, creating homes for these families, whether it be transitional or we have some permanent supportive housing as well. So we create the home, we attempt to find resources for the women. So after creating that home, we are trying to provide educational opportunities. The Ursulines, of course, are great educators, and I believe as well that the way to move out of poverty is often through education, whether it be for their children to make sure that they have a good foundation, but the women themselves, getting them involved at YSU, at Eastern Gateway, at a number of technical schools, to get further training so that they really can provide for their families if they're able to do that.
And I think that's the wonderful thing of the program. It's just not providing housing, but it's providing educational and job-related opportunities.
Absolutely.
And I think that's really a long-term goal that is fundamental to how we pretty much can exist in this world. And some of the people that you've served over the years, have they come back to help out at all or volunteer in any way? Do you find that at all?
Yes, in fact, we have one former client of Beatitude House who now sits on our board. A number of the women have come back. We have several fundraisers through the year, a wine taste in the spring, and a special Cornerstones dinner right in October, in which our major donors are invited to come for dinner with our clients. They sit at the table with our clients. We've got women there who have passed through our program and have done something with their lives. Last year we had a young woman who is in a military training program now that has gone through high school. Others have graduated from YSU. We have one who was a pharmacist at the time, right now. Others that are gaining their training, some that have gone into social services because they've really received services themselves and see that as a way to give back. We have some of them are coming back to volunteer for us.
We're down to the last 2 minutes of our first segment, Sister. Let's talk briefly about that whole sense of charism. You kind of alluded to it by saying about the Ursulines being strong in education.
Right.
How is this charism incorporated in the ministry and the mission of Beatitude House, of the Ursulines?
Primarily it's living the gospel, loving God in loving your neighbor, seeing the face of Christ in each of these women and children that come through. So we have a number of values at Beatitude House. One of those is hospitality, which is a charism of the Ursulines and probably all religious. A sense of welcoming others into our space and hoping that we can be welcomed into their space so that together we can transform the lives of these women and children. So hospitality, integrity, because these women are human beings. They have been people who have had the disadvantage of either growing up in an environment of poverty, of violence, perhaps of abuse, of addiction, who are attempting to try to put their lives together. We hope to offer the face of Christ to them as well. Offer a helping hand, help them meet their goals for their own lives and for their children.
You know, I can't help but feel that there's a sense of deep commitment, not only on behalf of the Ursulines, but I think on behalf of yourself. There's an emotional kind of bonding that happens, and as you do encounter these various women and their children, there's a sense of a relationship that's building. And isn't that ultimately what it's all about, Sister?
It is relational. It is relational. You know, as professionals as well, because we have a number of licensed social workers on our staff, we're always trying to balance the professionalism, and in a sense there is a certain distance from clients, objectivity that happens with what our ministry is, which is really reaching out our hand, touching the lives, entering into their lives, sharing their pain, their sorrows, as well as their joys and successes. So for me as a Franciscan, coming from a background of being very relational, fraternity is one of our major components of our charism, to be able to really be a part of these women's lives. And what happens is we do stay connected. Sister Patricia, for example, has on her cell phone 15 or 20 names and telephone numbers of women that she continually keeps in contact with, offering support, giving encouragement, sharing their success.
We're going to talk more about that, but we're going to take a quick break. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Mark Quinn. As I grew up on the south side of Chicago, the Dominican Sisters of Springfield not only taught me, but formed me in my Catholic faith. The sisters worked for very, very little. Now as they've gotten older, they have no savings to fall back on. And we benefited from their sacrifice. And I think it's time that we recognize that much of what we are today, we are because of what sisters did for us. It's our turn to help them out in their hour of need. They don't ask for a lot. They embrace a simple life. I owe them so much. That's why I make an annual donation to the Retirement Fund for Religious. Do you remember the religious men and women who shaped your life? Say thank you to them by donating to the Retirement Fund for Religious at your local parish. Join me. Share in the care.
Welcome back to Spotlight. I'm talking with Sister Janet Gardner from Beatitude House. Sister, we know that there's many different sites of Beatitude House around the northeastern part of Ohio. Tell us specifically where those sites are.
Our first site was, as I mentioned, on Fifth Avenue. That was 4 families. Since then, we have obtained 2 more houses with another 8 families and another house for offices and meeting space for the women. So we've got 12 apartments, transitional housing in Mahoning County. We also have in Warren, for the last 10 years or so, another 13 apartments at the old St. Joseph's Hospital convent that we renovated there. And for about 2 years now, we have transitional housing also at the request of the community of Ashtabula, another 10 apartments there. So that's transitional housing. Women can stay up to 2 years. They usually stay 9 to 14 months. So we work very quickly and intensively with women in transitional housing to help them move to permanent housing. We also have permanent supportive housing. That is housing for women with disabilities, very often mental disabilities, sometimes addiction, drug and alcohol, or maybe one of their children has a disability. In that program, women of low income, again, receive supportive services from us, but they can remain in that program for as long as they want the support. In both of these programs, women come to us and we work with them to create their own goals for their future. It's very client-oriented. We do a lot of motivational interviewing with them in which we are attempting to have them take control of their lives and move forward. We give them the support that they need. So we have 28 permanent supportive housing units. 4 of them at St. Brendan's Convent in Youngstown. We also collaborate with the Humility of Mary Housing with 4 units at Emmanuel Care Center in Girard. And just this summer opened a new program with the YWCA in Warren, another 12 apartments of permanent supportive housing. The Y runs the program. We offer the case management, support services, life skills, budgeting, and connect them with the local resources in Warren. So that's our housing program.
You also you had mentioned specific programs that you do. Tell us one of those stories about the programs.
It's really interesting. When I first came to Beatitude House a little over a year ago, in the transitional housing, we work with the community to fully furnish our 63 apartments. So we're getting donations with furniture, household items, and so on. One family came to the Youngstown site. The woman with her 4 children, a 24-year-old woman, We showed her the apartment that she was to get, and her children were so excited about what they were seeing there. Her little 4-year-old boy began to run around the apartment. And of course, we try to make it welcoming. Besides furnishing it and stocking the refrigerator and the pantry and so on, we try to do a little extra. On each of the children's beds, we had a teddy bear or another stuffed animal. Well, this 4-year-old ran to the door of what was to be his bedroom. And he looked in there so excited, and I was so happy that he noticed the teddy bear. He turned around to his mother and he said, "I have a bed. I have a real bed." Most of our women are coming from great poverty. Many of them have been house hopping from family to friends, staying a few weeks here, a month there, mostly on the floor. This child had never had a bed of his own. They were coming to Beatitude House with next to nothing and receiving something that dignified their lives. It was moving to me to see that. Other women have given testimonies of just the help that they can receive in the few months that they're with us in transitional housing to have a new sense of themselves. At our last wine taste dinner, one of the women had lived in Massachusetts. She had her own house, she had a career, she met a man that was to be her dream. She came here to Youngstown with him and found herself in a situation of terrible domestic violence. She lost her self-esteem. She lost any sense of herself. She had lost contact with her family, came to Beatitude House, and in her presentation at our wine taste was a self-confident woman who had regained a sense of self-respect and particularly was happy with herself because her child could believe in her again. That's just one of the stories. She's back in school again. She's going on for her career.
We're going to talk a little bit more about some of those specific stories in a moment, but we're going to take a break. And when we do come back, I think we'd like to wrestle with that whole issue of how do people find themselves and why do they find themselves in this situation of being homeless or disadvantaged and in this terrible cycle of poverty. We'll talk about that in a moment. We're going to take a break.
Thank you.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Light Moments. Here's Father Tom McSweeney.
Merci. Gracias. Danke. When was the last time you said thank you to a member of your family, or to a friend, a co-worker, or to God? You know, saying thank you may not seem like much, but those two little words actually mean a lot. They're an important way of letting others know that you respect them and appreciate them. Sure, thanks is just a word. It's easily said and just as easily forgotten. But a habit of gratitude is much more than that. Gratitude is a powerful force that can make your life happier and give joy to others. So make it a point to say thank you. Look for opportunities to express your gratitude to God and to others for the blessings you receive each day.
This message from the Christophers, New York, New York 10017.
Johnsons enjoy Friday dinners out. Nothing fancy, just time together to reconnect as family. They make sure others eat as well. By giving to Catholic Charities of Youngstown, the Johnsons join other angels who care for those in need, regardless of religion or race. Show your wings with a gift to Catholic Charities, changing lives one family at a time, providing housing, emergency financial assistance, senior services, and more. Give now at ccdoy.org.
I'm talking with Sister Janet Gardner of Beatitude House. Sister, we're going to talk about some of these real issues that really affect not only the clients and the people that you serve, but many Americans. But before we do that, if you could clarify again, we know about Beatitude House. Also part of the institution is Potter's Wheel and House of Blessing. Can you define those?
House of Blessing is simply the name that we give each of our sites for transitional housing. It is Beatitude House, but it's a House of Blessing Youngstown, a House of Blessing Warren, a House of Blessing Ashtabula. But we have had over the years also at a site called Potter's Wheel at St. Brendan's on the west side of Youngstown, an educational program. Because we believe that education is important, at one point we were offering GED services and other career training services for our women. Funding, of course, was cut over the last couple years, and we've had to curtail those programs because GED is being offered by other sites in the area. We did, however, begin a cooperative, an owner-run cleaning service called Beatitude House Green Clean. It was in operation for 5 years. The hope was that we would be able to give actual job training experience to our women. Many of them have never had a job before. So we have moved them into the cleaning program. Unfortunately, and we did have some funding from the Campaign of Human Development, both locally and nationally, for this co-op. Our hope was that these women would be able to move from cleaners to supervisors to begin to assist in the management of this program and to be owners of this company. We did it when we actually closed in the spring of 2014, this cooperative program, because we were unable in our 5 years to become truly self-sufficient. We were draining funds from our primary purpose, our transitional housing. So Green Clean, however, served 275 clients, customers, and we assisted 74 women going through this program. Now we are instead partnering with Goodwill, with Compass Professional Services, with some of the other training programs in each of the counties that we serve in, so that we resource those women into these other programs. So we don't run it ourselves at this point. It was a wonderful opportunity, but financially it didn't work out for us. So Potter's Wheel has succumbed, in a sense, to one program, which is an English language learning program right now. One of the Ursuline sisters, Sister Norma Roppel, has English learning classes with volunteers, with women who are immigrants to our country, primarily Hispanic, but from other countries as well, whether they be from Central America or from Asia or the Middle East.
Let's talk, Sister, about this whole cycle of poverty. How and why do people, in particular women, find themselves in this situation?
Well, from our statistics, we have probably about 63% of our women are coming from chronic poverty and from domestic violence, whether it be sexual or physical violence. There also, probably about 43% of our women have had some history with drug or alcohol addiction in their past, or are struggling with it now and are in recovery programs. Sometimes they come directly from treatment programs. So, in fact, Youngstown, a study was done last year and found that Youngstown was #1 in concentrated poverty. Our neighborhoods in Youngstown seem to be concentrated with a low level of income. So when you grow up in that kind of environment, there are very few resources, very few opportunities. Our women are coming from that. What we've found is that about 60% of women that are homeless have been homeless several times in their life. So they're coming out of that poverty. What we do is work with a program called Bridges, getting ahead in just getting by world. We work with our women because women that have grown up in an environment of poverty look at life differently. Let me give you an example. Food. If you go to a restaurant, Someone in a low middle income or poverty, when they go to a restaurant, they're going to focus on the quantity of food. How much am I getting for what I am spending? A upper middle class person looks more closely at the quality of the food. Is this the best cut of meat? Is this a fresh vegetable? Someone who is wealthy doesn't look at either of those. They're looking at the presentation of the food. It may be very little on the food, but they're expecting a pleasant presentation. So the mindset that someone comes from with poverty very often influences what they do with their life. Work as well. People of poverty very much depend upon relationships because they need those relationships to survive. Middle class people are looking at education and what you have been able to do, your knowledge, your skills. The wealthy look at their connections. Who do I know? Who am I connected with? Who can I do business with? So we really look at all of those aspects with our women and try to help them move into a worldview that is the majority of our society, so that they can fit into that society, that they can be more accomplished, more economically stable, and have more stability within our society.
Sister, we're down to about a minute left in our time together. The folks that are with us, if they would like to help Beatitude House, Potter's Wheel, this House of Blessing ministry in any way, what do they do? Who do they contact?
The best place to go is to our website. Most people have access to that. It's beatitudehouse.com, not org, but com. That would be the best place. We have a Facebook page as well, Beatitude House. And they can always call our central office, which is 330-744-3147. They can call any of our sites. If there's someone actually in need, the best place for them to call would be 211 or their local shelter or helpline, since we really receive our referrals from them. Anyone who comes to us needs to be homeless, and usually that means that they've been in a shelter or they are on the street.
Well, Sister Janet Gardner, I wish we had more time because
it's always good to share.
Definitely have a lot of wonderful stories, and please know of our support for the wonderful ministry that you are doing through Beatitude House, and this is truly
Thank you very much.
A house of blessing. Thank you.
It's been great to be here. Thanks a lot, Father Cormac.
Thank you for being with us. Have a good day, and God be with you.
Spotlight has been a production of CTNY, the Catholic Television Network of Youngstown. Your program host was Father James Corda.